Salute to God, the Most High, the Creator of everything. Salute to all my day one. Salute to the new subscribers. Um, if you're just not coming and stumbling across my little itty bitty little local platform, make yourself at home. Hit the like button, subscribe button. Trolls, only God and your mama can love you. Last but not least, I got to give it up to the Uncut Squad, the gifted family. Hit y'all with that one time. Y'all go subscribe to my sister J Stars. That's J Stars with two Z's. And we got to give God his two salutes. He is the author and finisher of all of our faith. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by saying my condolences to all parties, from Mr. Ryan Hinton Jr. to, Mr. Ryan Hinton, I'm sorry. My condolences to the officer who lost his life. My condolences even to Rodney Hinton Jr. for putting his life on the line at a very, very costly stake. Um, with that being said, let's remove race. See, everybody don't think like me. And I'm going to make sure I'm the very first YouTuber to put this ideology out here. Okay, let's remove race. As hard as it can be sometimes, and that's why I'm rocking this hat, because we have a problem in this country, y'all. We have a problem. Remove race. Let's pretend not everybody is the same color. But I am going to target how the propaganda is spreading. Now, the reason I say remove race is because what we're dealing with is racial issues being thrown at us to cause a divide. But if all of us just kind of steer clear of the racism and look at right and wrong in each equation, then we really wouldn't have a problem here on American soil, especially with getting along and loving one another as God has commanded us. Now, watch this. Now, watch this, ladies and gentlemen. Follow me, kings and queens. And let me slide on over here because I'm going to need to post some things. Let me slide on over here. Um, Peep this, ladies and gentlemen. Now, they gave us, we know about Austin Metcalf, we know about Carmelo Anthony, and that caused a racial divide. We remember people like Freddie Gray and Walter Scott, familiar names, all right, caused a racial divide. Now we're getting double cases, but the races are switched. Let me show you what I mean. Carmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf. Carmelo is black, obviously. Austin Metcalf was a white brother. Okay. Now, look what happened in that case. And parts of racist white America are upset. Parts of white America are upset. Hell, parts of black America are upset. You know what I'm saying? And it's easy to point the blame, but then we have the story of Casey Allison and Joe Ramirez. And they hide that because now Casey Allison is your Carmelo Anthony and Casey Allison is a white brother. And Joe Ramirez happens to be a minority as well, a Hispanic brother. Okay, Spanish brother. But we hide that. Okay, cool. Now this happens with Ryan Hinton. The father, Rodney Hinton Jr., takes the law into his own hands to avenge his son, and he's charged with aggravated murder. Now, what he did was wrong and egregious. Now, watch this. We got another one here, but we're going to forget about 10-year-old Jordan Hill, who was ran down and mauled by the white guy, Cody Rollinson in Mississippi early last month. That brother was only charged with possession of marijuana inside of his vehicle and fleeing the scene of an accident. He was never charged with taking the life, unaliving 10-year-old Cody Rollins, 10-year-old Jordan Hill, who was out riding his ATV, not in the road, not in traffic. Like, this guy actually swerved and ran this baby over, turned around and came back for his mirror that fell off of his truck while the baby was still laying out on the road unalive from his negligence and his prejudice. and he's never charged with it. And he lives two doors down from the family in which he unalived their child. Mississippi. We're sleeping on that. No justice. Now, here's why I say take race out of the equation. Because we should be focused on our American criminal justice system, ladies and gentlemen. I just proved the entitlement. I just proved the privilege. I just proved the major issue here that no one's talking about. There is systemic racism inside of our criminal justice system. This brother right here is charged with aggravated murder because he ran down a police officer who was doing traffic control on a compromised road. But they also said when Cody Rollinson ran down Jordan Hill that it was a compromised road. I think if you're out here flagging traffic, that is pretty compromised. Now I don't know what was going on the streets that Jordan Hill was unalived on, but they said it was compromised. All right. So what is the difference with this brother being charged with vehicular manslaughter and doing this? I mean, vehicular murder and doing this intentionally. Intentionally, he did this within 2 hours after viewing his son's body. And what is the difference from this and Cody Rollinson of Mississippi, who was never charged, who has Confederate flags all in his yard and everything else, who turned around and came back for the mirror that fell off of his truck after he unalived this 10-year-old little boy intentionally with his truck, and then tried to sell the truck the same way George Zimmerman sold the Pow Pow that he unalived Trayvon with for $250,000. How is this different, ladies and gentlemen? How is this different? The biggest racists, whether black or white, should be able to see exactly what I'm talking about right now. If we can't agree on the whole racial aspect, we can agree that there is an indifference in our criminal justice system. There's no way to refute that. There's no way to refute that. Now, let me throw something at you. What if all of the black people in Mississippi got together and stood in front of Cody Rollinson's house the way that all these hateful eyed police right here, okay, non-black police are gathered looking at him as if there's no other crime going on in Cincinnati right now? There's no other crime. Somebody could run a red light. Someone could get away whatever they want to get away with right now. All the drug dealers like, yay, we can get off today because the police ain't out here. Let's make this money, y'all. Y'all need to be out here fighting crime, man. Y'all need to be out here saving lives, man. But they're all piled in the courtroom because this brother took the life of a white law enforcement officer. And the color shouldn't matter. But I have to put it that way because that's the reason that they're doing this to him. We've never saw this before. But they're used to everyone marching, protesting, yelling, holding signs. At least they know where you're at, what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you're going to react. Now, this sets a different precedence. Now, they're not going to release that name of the officer who executed Rodney Hinton. And they're not going to release Rodney Hinton Jr. on bail either. You know why? Because neither one of them would probably live long. Neither one of them would see longevity in their existence if they're not protected right now. if they weren't protected. If this is the message that this generation now is going to send for unaliving one of our children, then do you really think they're going to release the name of this police officer and he could possibly get ran down too in another copycat crime by someone who wants to send the same exact message? Oh no. Oh no, that's not the propaganda they were looking for. And it's certainly not the propaganda we need in this country. But the minute Carmelo did this with Austin, we knew his name. We knew his name. We knew OJ's name. There's so many different instances we could put out there. This brother was sending a message. I'm not saying he was right in his actions, but the message was loud and clear. Tired of the injustice. tired of the systemic racism, tired of the privilege, tired of the entitlement, tired of being oppressed, tired of the opposition, tired of being lied to, tired of never receiving justice in return for the black lives that we are robbed of. Yes, they do stupid things. They do egregious things. That's why we have judges to sentence them, even to maximum time if needed. We have rehab centers. We have mental health centers. We have everything we need, excuse me, in our justice system that's resourceful and competent in rehabilitation. But when you're executed on the side of the road just for having a firearm, whether you had it at the point of your unaliving and or not, armed or unarmed, whether you're just running because you're scared or running because you have a pocket full of drugs or running because it's a stolen car, that's what law enforcement is here to do. But they're not here to execute someone on the side of the road. See, it almost seems like an old slave chaser, slave catcher mentality to where back then there weren't police, they were slave catchers, slave chasers. Once they found the runaway slave and or property, they would either execute them or they would return them. It was really their choice, and lots of them got executed because if they ran once, you're probably going to run again. And we're going to make an example out of you because we don't need anyone else practicing the same behavior. They're not going to release the name of this officer because they don't need anyone else practicing the same behavior as Mr. Rodney Hinton Jr. But it was a message sent very loud and clear. If anyone was listening, if anyone was watching, rest in peace to every single party involved in this case, every single life destroyed. But the message was loud and clear. Tired, tired, tired. Not going to keep marching. Not going to keep protesting. Not going to keep begging. Not going to keep forgiving and copping out for no criminal charges and we're getting civil monetary or assets compensation in return because they know most of us don't come from money. This brother was sending a message of an eye for an eye. Cody Rollinson was sending a message of what? Of what? And he was never charged. Casey Nelson just got a slap on the hand in the same state as Carmelo Anthony. Let's see what happens to Carmelo. Carmelo's courtrooms could very well look like this courtroom right here. This intimidation factor. They're looking like, you know what? Screw court, screw due process. Get the rope, boss. Get the rope. I'll get my pickup, you get the rope. I got the perfect tree. This is that mentality, man. So that's why I say take race out of the equation. Let's focus on right and wrong, ladies and gentlemen. What is the difference between this case, his actions, him intentionally running down a white law enforcement officer in revenge for his son who was executed by law enforcement, okay? And Cody Rollinson intentionally running down a 10-year-old who was just riding his ATV outside of his home, like on the side of a. You swerved and hit this baby. Came back, picked up your mirror that fell off the side of your truck, attempted to sell the truck. You stayed 2 houses down. You got Confederate flags everywhere in your yard, and you were never charged. You were never charged with the unaliving of this baby. No vehicular manslaughter, no nothing. But this brother here is held without a bond. Cody Robinson, come on, what, $4,100, 42, somewhere around there, 42,000, 42, somewhere, even if it's that extensive. Are you kidding me? 41,000. Are you kidding me? So everyone's mad at Rodney Hinton Jr. right now, but no one's mad at Cody Rollinson. We're going to polarize Rodney Hinton Jr. for what he did, and we're just going to sweep what Cody Rollinson did to little 10-year-old Jordan Hill in Mississippi at the beginning of April, just under the rug. This racist factor, this pacification, this entitlement, this privilege, it has to stop. And that's the message that this brother was sending. That is the message that he was sending. He's sending the same message that colonizers have been sending for years to our community alone. But now there's this thing called the Constitution. There's this thing called due process of the law. There's this thing called equality here in this country, to where you can't handle the things the way you would have handled it back in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, or even the early part of the 1900s. You can't handle it the same. Now we have to let the law play out. But you also have to deal with the pain of losing someone that you love who is endear to you, the same way that most Black families have to endure the pain of losing someone they love to the trauma created by the unaliving of our children, no matter how wrong they are on the side of the street by some law enforcement departments. And I think I just said a mouthful, ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, but what is the difference? What is the difference? Y'all know, before I end this, I want to play this. This is the African Diaspora News Channel. Y'all go subscribe and salute to Philip Scott. It's early in the morning, y'all. I'm just waking up, but I had to do this because I want to get it out there. I want y'all to see how they're treating this brother right now and how this brother handled them in return.
You'll return him on Tuesday, May the 6th at 8:30 a.m. for a hearing at 9 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, for the record, we'd ask the court to put a bond.
Notice this Black woman back here. She's just here doing her job. There is no hatred in her eyes. She is fulfilling the requirements of her job. Look at the eyes and look at the body language, okay, of the white brothers back here in the law enforcement uniforms. Look at them. Look at them.
On in town, but we understand that. So not bond during criminal custody.
All right, no bond.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can hold him at no bond for 72 hours. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much.
No bond for 72 hours because he unalived a cop intentionally for these cops unaliving his son. Now, what I left out was the race of the cop. And that's the reason that this brother has no bond. But Cody Rollinson was never charged for unaliving Jordan Hill in Mississippi and running him down and unaliving him. And what I left out was the race. Jordan Hill was Black, 10 years old, doing what children do, and Cody Rollinson is a grown-ass white guy. But he wasn't even charged. Not for the unaliving, just possession of marijuana in his vehicle and fleeing the scene of an accident, in which he has a history of doing repeatedly. This brother here doesn't even have a history, no felonies, absolutely no record until now. Get your head up, young man. Yeah, talk to him.
You saw all those.
I had to do it that way. I had to, because that's for the race baiters. That's for the race soldiers. That right there let me know that this brother was indeed sending a message, and the message was received. So I hope this does not turn into an unisolated event. I hope this does not turn into a national redemption type thing here. That we're not going to keep practicing this eye for an eye and F around and find out and having to tell people to keep their hands to themselves and beg, scream, cry, plead for justice. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. What they're doing right now is no different from January 6th when they didn't get their way. And that's coming from someone who really prefers Trump over Kamala. But I'm not going to get out here and do all of this for a human being, because I know the Bible says not to put any trust in man, in the flesh. But why are we trying to string this brother along like this? Let's let Philip Scott get his shine, ladies and gentlemen. Fair use educational purposes.
cops standing in there, and boy, them white cops was looking so angry and upset. Oh, they look like they just like, oh, can I string him up right now? And that brother just walked right by and looked at all of them in the eye. He didn't duck his head. He wasn't scared, any of that. You know what I'm saying? He was like, nah, what? What do you want to do? You know what I'm saying? See, they are afraid of that. They're afraid of black people responding in that manner. See, when you had the civil rights generation, only thing they wanted you to do is just do right. Okay? When one of these old race soldiers took the life of a black person, they wanted you to get them arrested and have them put in jail. That's what they wanted, right? A lot of them were saying they forgive you for taking the lives of black people. That's what the civil rights generation wanted with you. This new generation, not so much. This new generation is really not about a bunch of praying and begging for y'all to ask for forgiveness and all that sort of thing like that. See, this father here, right? Think about all the years he saw black boys and young black men lose their life at the hands of these police. And it's always the same usual suspects, right? Taking the life of a young black man. And after years and years and years and years of seeing this, including what happened with George Floyd, okay? After years of seeing this, and Rodney would have never thought that would have been his son. After all these years, he didn't seen this. And he saw his son. Remember, this happened 2 hours after he saw his son's body and he identified his son's body. 2 hours later, he went and targeted the deputy. Now,
And again, I want to say rest in peace to that officer, because this officer did not deserve this. He was not even the officer who executed Rodney Hinton's son, Ryan. But because he wore that badge, because his brother had just viewed, and this isn't an excuse. This isn't an excuse. This is his mindset at the time. He couldn't handle it no more. He wanted to send a message. He knew he was not going to get justice. I'll drop this link in the description box, ladies and gentlemen, because I ain't going to make this video too long. Y'all get your one-on-one. Get your one-on-one. Get your one-on-one with your higher power. Y'all stay prayed us, stay blessed us, stay meditate us, stay protected, stay real, stay conscious, stay uncut, be inspired, be great, be you, and America. All of America. Let's be better than this, man. Let's be better than this. Ashe.